Here we go.
We are live. Good evening, guys. Welcome along to our latest Blether session. Tonight we have got Paul Dempsey joining us from the Spey Distillery in Kingussie, or just outside Kingussie. And so I'm sure we will hear quite a lot about that relatively unknown distillery. I think in terms of the size and what it produces. But whenever we do a tasting, we have a lot of excited people as well as a lot of new people who are very surprised by what they taste. So I'm looking forward to having a great chat. I think the last time we had a chat with Paul, it was a staff training night, wasn't it? We had and it went quite long into the night. So while we cannot promise that it won't happen, we'll try and keep it to our 1 hour slot, so we don't bore you and you're not getting in trouble from the wife for sitting in front of the laptop getting a bit sozzled. Good evening, Phil. Nice to have you again. Quick fire off the mark as always. Russell, back the glass. I was about to say good night to you as well. I haven't seen
In the glass, I have got a single grain Loch Lomond.
Nice.
Lovely dram. Single grain. It's 100% malted barley, but it's made in a coffee still, so they have to call it single grain. Brilliant. Really well priced as well. Less than £30, I think. Really nice dram. So.
Awesome. I was raking today for a bottle of Spey to pour tonight, but I haven't got one, which I take this as a compliment, Paul, if you're in the background. I must have finished all the sample bottles that we've been given from you. So let's say
I got a nice bottle of 12 Tawny that I finished a couple of weeks ago, so I would have had that tonight. And I've got the Trattina sitting there, but it's the cast strength, and that's just a little bit too much for me tonight. So that leave that one for another night for a bit more game.
Let's say I'm going to go from one of the tallest bottles at the Spey. I'm going to go for our shop exclusive, one of the smallest bottles in the shop. Our wee McMyra Lost Dallin Legret, which is our UK exclusive.
What's easy for you to say?
I've been practicing a lot. Phil Dixon, he's on a wee Dumbarton sample.
Oh, nice
to hear. I wonder where you got that from. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Indeed.
Alistair Gray's on from the founder of the Friends of Spey Facebook page. So he'll be. I'm sure he's got a bottle of Spey sitting there to have a dram with. You're not here to talk to us. You're here to listen to Paul. So we will bring Paul in, and hopefully this is always the nervy part of it when we open up here.
Yes.
And he's behind us somewhere.
Hello. He's behind the filter.
Hello, Paul.
I love this. This is great. This is like the curtain on the Morecambe and Wise show where you can just slide things across the camera. Good evening.
How are you?
Oh, not too bad. It's nearly the weekend, but then I'm working at the weekend, so maybe not.
Oh, well, yeah, it's a familiar feeling. Yeah.
So it is the weekend.
Sorry?
So it is the weekend for you then?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Well, do you know what? It's a whiskey festival, so it's not actually that much. It's not that bad. It's a lot of fun, those things. So you get to go out in front of real people for a change. So I've been sitting.
Will this be your first festival back then?
Sorry?
Will this be your first face-to-face festival for a while?
We did one. We did the Spirit of Perthshire one a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
Down at Castle Menzies. Amazing venue. It was like 100 stairs you had to climb spiral to get your table in, and it was lovely. But I think a little bit smaller than the Aberdeen one is planned to be this weekend. So
okay, and so the Perthshire was smaller. So that would have been kind of just opening up, so people would have been unsure.
That was the first one. That was the first one for a lot of us actually. So this is probably the first, what you would call a first big festival. It's like 2 sessions in the middle of a city centre and all that kind of stuff. Kind of thing we used to do all the time until about 18 months ago. So
yes, yeah. Till the world changed.
It's a thing people miss, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, they're not they're tricky things to work. You know, you're knackered. You've got a long day. Everybody else is drinking whiskey, and you've probably got to drive home. But you don't realise how much you miss it until you haven't got any of them to go to. So, this whole cyberspace, Zoom, StreamYard thing's been a bit of a lifesaver, because we'd probably not have seen any of you guys at all in the last kind of 18 months if it wasn't for because all the places we used to bump into each other haven't been happening. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's we keep saying, I think we mention every week how good the Zoom has been, but now that we're face to face as often as we can, people are enjoying it, and we've certainly seen a drop off in the virtual tastings side of things. But and I think there's a lot of things to kind of coincide. There's the lighter nights, the summer weather. The football was on the telly just at the start, and pubs are open, so people are getting out face to face. They're not forced to sit at home and watch a wee telly screen.
Because we've got our place down in Aviemore, and we were doing virtual things there over the winter. Just again, it keeps the shop. The shop wasn't open, but we were doing online stuff, making up the little tasting packs. But once people could travel, once the bars opened and the lighter nights came in, the sort of clicks on the attend the tasting button on our website, they just kind of fell away. We're going to do a few more towards the end of the year once the darker nights are in. But I think for us as a distillery, that was more of a winter thing for us, and we'd rather do them with the shops anyway, because you're the guys that are talking to the customers. So.
Yeah, it's been a good way.
We just had a few people.
Yeah, I was just saying it's been a good way getting to meet a lot of people online, because sometimes in the shop, out with tastings, it's quite hard to kind of catch up with people. So we kind of a lot of you guys, a lot of distilleries were doing sort of weekly things like this at the start of lockdown. So it was a really good way to get to know. For me, being new to the industry, it was a great way to get to know people, who people were, and where they worked, and what they did, and things. So. I think it's been worthwhile.
I'll tell you what, as well, the kind of access that it's given to people that you would only ever see at big whiskey festivals. I've seen you guys have had kind of Greg, the filmmaker, on. You've had Jim McEwen. You've had, what did you say? You got
Billy Walker, who's
coming next week. So
next week,
yeah, it's been great to get access to these guys. Yeah.
And some of these, I mean, I've seen tastings. I've been on a couple of tastings with folk who are sitting in Australia at the time. The only weird thing is doing it with the time difference, because, I did a virtual tasting for our American importer, and it was I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning in my spare room here. And everybody I think they were in New England somewhere, they were all outside at a barbecue. It was like 8 o'clock at night, and there's like, the fire pits are all going. I'm like, God, it's like I want to be in my bed right now. So
yeah.
But that would have been difficult. That's difficult to do in normal circumstances. So to do it, I think some of the whiskey shows are going to combine in-person stuff and virtual now. So you might be one of those shows where one of the Australian distillers will do a masterclass, but they'll do it from Australia, or because it might not be possible to travel. So I'm kind of, it's going to be interesting to see just how that works. I'd love to see some of that,
Yeah, we had just last night we had our second virtual hybrid tasting. So we did it from the shop. We had a half dozen guys in the shop, and then we had kind of our regulars on the telly. So it was good. We just had the camera set up, and it works. It works quite well. It's different, but it gives everyone the access. One of the things that we noticed, or the feedback we got, and I was thinking when we're virtually sending out, we'd be sending out to Glasgow, to London, to wherever far and away. But a lot of them's actually in the northeast of Scotland. So to us, it's a £25 or a £30 tasting, but to the customer, it's maybe a tenner each way in a taxi or a babysitter. A present for the wife because they're going out for a drink. It could be £100 for them.
The audience you guys get. I mean, I've seen a couple that when COVID started, there's a lot of sort of local whiskey clubs. You know, there were little tasting groups, or they were based. You know, like Southport Whiskey Club's a good example. A lot of retailers have got a whiskey club that's, you know, dedicated to the store, and it's, as you said, Mike, it's folk within kind of 10 miles of the shop. But they're all sort of getting interest now from further afield, and the more tastings we've done with shops, there'll be somebody. I think the last time we did one with you, when I was here with Finlay, our distillery manager, there was somebody from Hawaii on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mike. Yeah. Mike Burgess.
And
yeah. Hamish.
Yeah.
Hamish.
and we did the Southport Whiskey Club one a couple of months ago. I think there's probably more folk watching that who weren't from Southport. They've got people in the south of England, folk in the north of Scotland.
Yeah.
So everybody's getting a bigger audience. It's great. The funny thing is, when I've met a few people in person now that we're all traveling again, and I think they all get a fright when they see how tall I am.
Yeah, we were
Everybody's only seen me from here upwards. And you walk into. I walked into somebody. I can't remember. I was going to somebody's house to drop something off, and I walked in, and there's somebody that'd been in one of the Zoom tastings was there. They're like, "Oh my God, we thought you were like 5'8". You're like, "Nah, sorry."
Add a bit of fruit onto that. Yeah.
Yeah. In a year and a half of not having to sit in airplanes with like no leg room, so it's fantastic.
Right. Yeah. Do you think it's going to be long until that's happening again? Are you going to Paris? There's a Paris Whisky Festival coming up then the month.
We're not doing Paris. We're doing the London one.
Right.
We have a different importer in France than most people. We're with a kind of really cool small importer. He's got I think two Scotch distilleries, us and Nick Nean, and he's got the English whiskey company. So he's got three kind of small producers. So I think the people behind Whisky Live Paris have got such a huge range of companies they can already work with. Love to do. We've never done a festival in France. Toulouse was a couple of weeks ago, but it was just on the edge of the travel opening up again. So when the invite came, I wasn't sure if we were going to be allowed to travel, so I didn't. I've got a thing in Belgium next month, and I'm doing some judging. And then in November, there's the big festival at The Hague in Holland, Netherlands, sorry. And that was the first ever foreign whiskey festival I did about 7 or 8 years ago. So, and it's great fun. I love going back there. So I really hope that we're all that more people are traveling by then. Because it's just a great one to visit. You know, our importer out there's got about 20 different agencies. So you end up sharing a stand with, I think we're sharing a stand with Adelphi, with Morrison's, with Blackadder, and loads of really cool kind of indie bottlers.
Nice.
So, you know, we don't normally see until this event. So it's going to be great to see them all again. So
you've been doing a lot of cycling, I guess, during COVID. Is that some? Get my tongue right. Is that something you've always done, or was it something you kind of took up? I guess because you kind of stuck at home. And
I used to do loads when I was a kid. Difference when I was a teenager and at school and all that. I was a BMX racer, and we was on the sort of international squad for a wee while.
Wow.
Chris Hoy was actually in the year below me.
Oh, really?
Stuck at it and did rather well.
Yeah. Yes, he did not bad, didn't he?
I discovered the pub when I was about 18. So I've always had a bike, but when lockdown started and they were like saying, "Oh, you can only leave your house, you know, you can't go more than 5 miles from your house unless you're doing exercise." I thought, "Oh, this is probably the best time ever to get the bike back out."
Yeah.
Glasgow's pretty good for that. You can avoid all the broken glass bottles. It's lovely. There's loads of like canals, river paths around here, so they're not even that steep, and it's been. I'll tell you what, it's actually been great for the old relaxation thing. So I was out this afternoon. I nipped out for an hour this afternoon, and it's quite scary when I look at the Strava and you suddenly realise you've done like about 1,000 miles this year. You're like, oh God, I never ever thought I'd do that. So
yeah. So I mean, are you gonna miss that when you go back abroad, or are you going to try and hire bikes when you're abroad and a bit more?
Depends where you are. I mean, you go to places like Denmark or the Netherlands, it's pretty easy to find a bike.
Yeah.
But it just depends. Normally, we're staying in a hotel that's near the festival. I always try and stay a couple of days after an event just so I can see a bit of the country.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, sometimes you just discover these things by accident. I mean, when we were setting up with this French distributor, I was in Paris, and it was like the week before Christmas 2019. So just before COVID was even upon us. But in Paris that week, there was strikes on, so all the public transport was shut. So the only way to get around was they had the rental bikes, but they also have in Paris, they've got the electric scooters you can hire.
Oh, cool.
So there's like guys in suits with their briefcases, like scooting up the Champs-Elysees on the what? It's like I know we're not allowed them in this country, but they're great fun.
Yeah.
It is weird. I've never arrived at a business meeting like that before, but it was, you know, I don't know if they'll ever bring them here. I don't know if you can be trusted with them, but
Probably not. Yeah.
it was amazing watching that Champs-Elysees roundabout with no buses on it, but just hundreds of people on these little scooters.
These scooters, yeah. You could just go through the Arc de Triomphe instead of going round it, couldn't you? Just go straight through.
Dragging their Christmas shopping and everything. You know, this is amazing. So, yeah, I'll probably just, you know, I'm going to London soon. I'll probably end up hiring the bike there. I'd rather use that than get the underground train. So,
Yeah.
They're not expensive. So,
Definitely. We've got a question coming in from Alistair. Alistair Gray is the founder of the Friends of Spey page.
Oh, hello, Alistair. Thanks for popping in.
You'll see him on Saturdays. He's going to the 12 o'clock session in Aberdeen.
Brilliant.
He's asking about the new distillery. I suppose it was going to come up sooner or later tonight.
That came up pretty quickly, didn't it? Easy answer. We've got the site, but we haven't announced where it is. There's all manner of kind of research has to go on before. To be honest, Finlay is probably more involved in that because he's up there. You know, I'm based out of Glasgow most of the time, but they've got, you know, the CEO lives in Aviemore. Finlay lives in Rothes, or not far from Rothes. So those guys know the area and they know the sites they've been looking at. But it's still 2025 is when our lease on the current plot expires.
Okay.
So there's a lot of time, you know. I don't think anybody. Mind you, I drove past. I was up in the Highlands last week for the launch of the Rothes Glen place. That sort of estate that the chaps from Whisky Live have refurbished and relaunched. And I drove past the new Gordon and MacPhail one, which is just outside Granton. And they're throwing that up. That's, you know,
it's gone at some rate. I was past it the weekend and
still everything now. So
yeah. So it looks nice. So are the guys trying to get further up the Spey? Because you used to be the furthest up the Spey until they started. So are you just going to leapfrog over them and go further up?
I don't know. I'm absolutely sworn to secrecy as to where it is. You know where we are currently is we're the first, or we're the closest distillery to the source of the Spey at the moment.
Yeah.
Although the water source that you see on all the pictures is the Tromi, which runs into the Spey, but the Spey is not that far from us. I can't say, but I hope we're in the same area because it's just a fantastic little part of the world. So,
isn't it just?
I am quite happy that Gordon MacPhail seem to be going very, very quickly at getting their one, which I think they're going to call the Cairn, up because it's not that far from us. So for when it gets to things like Spirit of Speyside, one of the big problems we have is we're so far away from all the other Speyside regional distilleries that it's more of a trek for folk to come and see us. So when you get the Speyside Festival on, they can go to Dufton and see half a dozen distilleries in one day. Yeah. But they've got to figure out a way to get down to Aviemore for one distillery visit. But they could feasibly visit two in the same trip now. So that brings more people a little bit further south. So we'll soon see. But yeah, they look like, I mean, when I drove past it, the walls were getting put up, but the stills were already there, so they can't be that far away from pushing the button on it. So
it'd be good, yeah. And as I said, a new distillery to look forward to and get involved with. So yeah, looking forward to that. I mean, we always say in the Blether, we don't want to push too much on brand. We want to talk about you, want to find out about yourself. So where did the whiskey journey start for you?
Right, okay. I started in the wine trade far too many years ago. Worked for an American winery called Gallo, famous Ernest and Julio Gallo. They're like they're like the Kellogg's of the wine world. They're massive. It's weird because I was there for about 3 years and never ever opened a bottle at a meeting. You know, because most of their stuff is we were selling to supermarkets, so it was all about the price, the margins. You'd book promotional slots, and I didn't know that there was a wider trade out there because I'd come in from somewhere else. They'd hired me because I'd worked in a kind of sales environment rather than a wine background.
Okay.
From there, I joined. There was a startup company. This would have been 2002, called Cellar Trends, who became quite successful, but they started in 2001, 2002. And they had the agency for a Rioja. And then you suddenly realize wine is a lot of fun because you would go out and see vineyards, you would go to tastings, you would, you know, you were selling to restaurants and stuff. But they had some spirits agencies as well. So when I joined them, they had Aaron. Aaron was about 6 years old at this point. So that, you know, so I think I might have been the very first distributor that Isle of Arran had in the UK. Latterly, Cellar Trends picked up Bowmore and Auchentoshan and Suntory, so about 2007. So that's when I suddenly got a lot of whiskies to work with. Because obviously they were, you know, Bowmore and these guys were much, much bigger. And nobody was buying it. Hilariously, nobody bought Japanese whiskey at that time. So I had cases of the Yamazaki 18 in the boot of the car that nobody would buy. And now you see it going at auction and you've got to go ballot for it and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, I really shouldn't have been giving that away. I should have stashed it in the cupboard or something. So I was there for years. And then in about 2010, I joined a smaller distributor, but they had the agencies at the time for Bruichladdich. And again, Aaron was with them at that point as well. So over that spell, I worked with Aaron, Bowmore, Auchentoshan, Suntory, Bruichladdich. And then when Bruichladdich got sold, I can't remember when that was, but Remy bought Bruichladdich and they had no need to use a company to, you know, they had no need to use an agency company like ours. I spotted the job with Spey because they'd just changed owners and they were setting out on a new journey themselves. So that's when I joined them. So about 2014.
Okay.
And I've been there since then. So there's been more and more whiskey gradually as it's gone on. Now it's all whiskey. So a little bit of gin.
Indeed, yeah. So you were at Bruichladdich during the rock and roll years then?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because you could tell something was coming. I mean, we were an agent, so we were employed by Bruichladdich to put their whiskey out to all the shops. But I live about a mile from where Bruichladdich office is in Glasgow. So I was in their office more often than I was in my own. Mm-hmm. And you could see, you know, with every limited edition release, because we released some of the PCs, some of the Octomores, there was just more and more people starting to ask for allocations, starting to put, you know, and it was they were becoming, you know, the level of interest in each of their limited edition releases was just getting bigger every time. And then, so, you know, and it was still independent. There wasn't any new distilleries being built in Islay at that point. Mm. They got all this up as an independent company. They probably spent a fortune doing it. You've heard the Jim McEwen story and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it didn't really come as a surprise when they then told us that they'd agreed to sell to a sort of bigger international company. It was probably a surprise that it came so early. You know, I'd kind of thought that I'd worked with spirit brands. I worked with Grey Goose and they got sold a couple of years before that. And then I'd worked with a few others. So you could see when the brand gets really hot. But I think maybe somebody had been watching Bruichladdich and thought this would be the time to talk to them before anybody else does, perhaps. I don't know. But yeah, great, because it has, you know, it gave them, I think, very little changed at the distillery, but they've now got this massive resource globally. Bruichladdich suddenly appeared in lots and lots of all the airports around the world. They've got, probably a lot easier for them to get hold of great casks and stuff like that. So,
yeah. Sometimes you just need that bit of luck and that bit of interest to set you off on a completely different path, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Bruichladdich, every time you would do a Bruichladdich tasting, right, people would ask, because they had Port Charlotte and they had Bruichladdich, but both coming out the same distillery. People would always ask, are they going to rebuild Port Charlotte? It's like, I think, one, I don't think they need to, because they've still got enough capacity at Bruichladdich to do it. But there's any number of new distilleries in Scotland that have appeared in the last 20 years who will tell you how much it costs to build a new distillery from scratch.
Yeah.
So if you've got a distillery that's got space to work harder, it's probably best you do that than it is to because it'd be an awful lot of time before you start to get your money back if you were to build one from scratch. I'm sure they could probably do it now if with the backers that they've got, but I don't know what their capacity is. They're probably quite happy working with what they've got. They're certainly putting out some cracking whiskey. So,
yeah, definitely. And I think you can get to the size where your limited editions aren't that limited anymore, and they kind of clamor for them. You can die. You can go too much. Putting out a limited edition every other week.
Those limited editions of 50,000 and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Certain
really limited.
Became quite famous for that. So yeah, so you want to keep it for that kind of level of stuff. You want to keep it so it is sought after rather than here's another one. And yeah. So do they want to have a separate Port Charlotte distillery just doing that? Probably not. I don't think it makes sense.
They'll know themselves better than anybody else when the time would be right for them to do something on that kind of scale. The last release I was involved with them was the Laddie 10-year-old, which they released on. In fact, we were all on the island for it. It was the 10th anniversary of the distillery reopening again. So it was, I think it was the 11th of September 2011.
Okay.
When we launched the Laddie 10. And the idea, I think, at the time was that the Laddie 10 would be the first age statement under the new owners, under the current 4 directors as it was at the time. And then I think it got so popular that the 10-year-old kind of disappeared again.
Yeah.
Because there was such huge demand that it only stuck around for about a year or two. And, like a lot of distilleries, there's a good mix of kind of no age statement and older ones. But those guys were always good at the no age statements because they've got they were so keen to work with all these different kind of casks and, those guys, I think Bruichladdich and Arden were probably the 2 that were doing the most interesting stuff with casks back in the early noughties, certainly.
Yeah.
I'd never even heard of Sassicaia or Marsala until I saw their stuff. So.
So you're taking a sip of your dram there. We never asked what you've got in your glass, Paul.
Well, I heard what you said about the Trittina cask strength. So I've got the Trittina breakfast one. I've got the
wonderful.
I've got the 46 one. It's a great whiskey, but it was also open, and I didn't have to pay for it. So
absolutely.
So, I could have. I've, like most folk in the industry, I've got like a cupboard with like little bottles that you've pinched from whiskey festivals of all the different old and rare ones. I could have had a really fancy one, but this is actually proper sipping stuff. So
yeah. I think it was Alistair that mentioned earlier on. Phil Dixon say back when we're talking about the online, he's saying that the amount of drams, the broad range of drams he's had access to, and I think it's the same as going to a festival. You probably different when you're working there because you get them to take away, and I'm sure you guys kind of swap over bottles and then you take them home, full intention of drinking them, and then they maybe sit, and then within a week you've had samples, another dozen samples arrive, and the samples is built up. But I can't get around to tasting.
Yeah, I can't speak for anybody else that does my job for another distillery, but I think they might think like this as well. I certainly do. for the last year and a half, normally you do a whiskey festival. It's a new distillery or somebody's got a new dram. Everybody gets over to get a wee taste of it.
Mm-hmm.
But while we've all been doing virtual, that's the one thing we haven't been able to do. So, I think at Aberdeen on Saturday, I saw the site plan today. I think I've got Glenmurray next to me and Glenallachie on the other side. Now, both of those have got new releases that I've not tried yet. And it's like guaranteed I'll be sitting there. There'll be a dram glass getting passed between the tables because I need to try them out. Normally you would as a matter of course. So I'm really looking forward to that kind of stuff. But the other good thing about the lockdown is some of the things that have been on these virtual tastings is stuff you would never even see at a festival.
Yeah.
There was, I can't remember who it was, but I saw a shop doing a virtual tasting where they had like the first Torabeg, the first Nicnean,
the unicorn,
and they had them all in the one tasting pack, and you're like, that's like they're all bottles that you'd had to go into a ballot to get hold of.
Yeah.
And
it was maybe Luvians, wasn't it?
I think it was Luvians did the unicorn.
Yeah, it probably was because they had a spring bank there as well.
I think it was.
These are bottles. A lot of these bottles might not have made it to folk that were going to open them. They're maybe just going to sit on them and then auction them in a year and go on holiday or something. So I thought it was great. I've got the same distributor in the Netherlands as Ardnamurchan. I've got the same distributor in Germany as Torabeg. So I'm like, right, I'm going to step back for that. I'm not going to buy a tasting pack because at some point I'll probably get to taste those anyway. I was let's. I want to see what people do, but I mean the tasting packs I think sold out in about 30 seconds anyway because they're just you would never see a lineup like that at a festival. So nice things about the online stuff. So.
Talking about the kind of unicorn bottles, I guess, and just thinking about, I mean, I've not had a chance to go to any festivals ever. I've never done them in the past. It's something I'm really looking forward to doing in the future. But obviously the online situation has allowed people, investors, flippers, whatever you want to call, collectors, probably much more access to a lot of these bottles that you would ordinarily maybe had to go to a festival to get access to. So do you think that, I mean, in your experience of being at festivals, did it feel like people were going to festivals to collect or to invest, or was it mainly genuinely drinkers?
It varies from country to country and from festival to festival. You've got festivals like Limburg in Germany, which is you very rarely see the big companies there. So there's no Diageo, there's no Macallan. It tends to be the smaller producers and lots of indie bottlers. And Germany's got a huge indie bottler scene, so there's loads of German indie bottlers there. Cool. And the folk there are there to. They come in with notebooks and reference files and everything. It's like, probably one of the kind of most intense in terms of the amount of facts you get asked about. And then you get, things like Whisky Live Paris, where there's a lot of the bigger companies and their new releases are very much on show. So what you do get at a lot of festivals is festival bottles. So we're doing one in Belgium next month. I'm not going to be there myself, but we're doing a Spey single cask for a festival in Belgium. So the only place you'll be able to buy that is in that Belgian festival. We're not at the stage where flippers are going to buy it and whatnot. It's great. We're still, people still buy our whiskey and open it, which is, I think I'm quite happy about. Mm-hmm. But so most of the stuff that I've bought at festival tends to be these festival bottles, because I know if you're in, a whiskey festival in Holland or Germany or France or Italy, and you see there's only 300 bottles of those, and they're only available at that festival. So it's a nice little souvenir to have. I mean, I've got festival bottles from Italy, from Poland, from Germany in the house here, and I know I can't walk down the street. They weren't expensive to buy. Because these things are usually between 70 euros and 100 euros a bottle. And, I can't find them here. So it's great. It's something a little bit special without paying silly, kind of crazy, through the roof auctions or entering a ballot and sitting like this, hoping you get a bottle. That said, I have managed to get a couple of bottles out of ballots, but I'm keeping them. I didn't buy them to flip. I like collecting bottles from the new distilleries as well. So.
I was quite lucky with a couple of Daphnes and ballots, and one's open and the other one's going to get opened as well. So yeah, for sure. It's interesting you say about people coming with their their sort of sheets of notes, reference files, and all that kind of stuff. Because Stuart Buchanan was on a couple of weeks ago. I think he maybe tuned in that night, and he was saying that we were talking about Gordon and how their jobs are so diverse. You know, the had Gordon out kind of photographing polar bears and stuff like that, and he was saying that we just had a brief conversation online, which we shared on the night, where he said that sometimes he thinks that Gordon's actually got an easier job, you know, facing a polar bear than he has a whiskey drinker with a list of notes and questions.
Well, Stuart's another one that's probably familiar with it. Well, he has. I know we've both worked at Limburg before.
Yeah.
And it's a collector's festival. It's worth visiting. But I don't know what it's going to be like once we're out of this, because pre-COVID, it's in a little town hall. Limburg's not a big place, right? So it's a little town hall, probably a town a bit like Inverurie. But I mean, my importer in Germany told me that I think the local cash machines, because at the fairs in Germany, people pay for every single dram. So you can pay €2 for a standard 50 quid bottle for a dram from there. But there will be somebody at that festival that's got, you know, a 1960s Bowmore open. And if you've got €50, you can have a dram of it.
Right.
But he told my importer said that I think the cash machines around Limburg get loaded the week before the festival with several million euros.
Yeah.
And every guest house and B&B within about 10 miles is booked by people that are going to be at this festival. It's, you know, completely different. There's not another festival like that in Germany. You know, some of the others are a lot more, you get all the kind of, this is the new Macallan with the big shiny lights and movies. And so there's something for everybody. But
we go to Limburg with 3 minis and a coach when the festival's on.
People turn up genuinely, and this is not genuinely, people turn up with those little rolling suitcases full of empty miniature bottles, because they know they don't want to drink at the festival. They want to go home and taste it there and write their own tasting. So you'll quite often, they will point to the dram, they'll give you the money that you're asking for it, but then they'll hand you an empty bottle for you to fill. And then they go away. They don't taste it in front of you. You don't get to hear the tasting notes. I've never seen that anywhere else. But they're there by the truckload. You know, they're guys with their little cases full of empty bottles.
They must have certain drams that they want to try because they maybe want to buy a bottle at the festival.
Mm-hmm.
But they want to take everything.
Yeah, but for the collectible ones, for the ones that are maybe Limburg's got a big old and rare element. So for the ones that aren't on general release, maybe, you know, there's a kind of an obscure old bottle in there that's already halfway done. That might be the last bottle you'll ever find open for years. So they want to take a couple of measures home with them. So, but it is kind of weird when you pour something and they just walk away. They don't even taste it in front of you and you don't see it. They're like, oh, okay, I hope they like it. Someone down the line will try
it. So. I don't think I enjoy that kind of festival. Where
I've got a picture. I'll need to email you. I've got a picture of a guy. I didn't put his face in the picture, but he turned up. You know, you get the shooting jackets that you get at House of Brewer, and you put your shotgun cartridges in the little slots. He turned up at my table, but instead of the shotgun cartridges, he had empty 2CL vials, and he had them all the way down his jacket. I've never seen anything like that before. I thought it was amazing. What a great way to carry your drinks around at a festival. So
absolutely, yeah. I'm just looking at the chat here. We've got David Muir. I've got an image of
too much information, David. Too much information.
Yeah. David, for regular watchers. He's not only is he coming late, but he's jumped in the bath with a large cold rain. Halfway done that 45 at F90. So I hope you're enjoying it, David.
Just seen Fiona's comment. Gordon is taller if she's talking about Gordon Buchanan.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but my wee sister's nieces, my nieces, sorry, my sister's kids, she's got 2 twin, I think they're 9 years old now, but they're totally into their wildlife stuff. They love, you know, they've got a little subscription to Edinburgh Zoo, the whole lot. So they've seen some of Gordon's work, and there was a thing. I think Stuart did a tasting somewhere with Gordon. They did a tasting together.
There was a one online, a Zoom online together. That's right.
Yeah. And I showed my wee sister the pictures of it because the kids were talking about it, and my sister said that looks like a before and after of whiskey. They do look alike, you know.
They do look alike.
I take it for you to say that Gordon is taller than Stuart, or is he taller than yourself, Paul?
Yeah, I've never met Stuart's brother. I've only met Stuart. So, yeah, I remember that. I thought that would be an amazing tasting to be at. I didn't see it, but I saw the advert for it. I thought that's a great idea.
Yeah, it was through the Glendronach or the Inverurie.
Yeah, Glenglasser. It was the Glenglasser one because they spoke about Sandend, and because Gordon put his hand up and said he felt a little bit guilty that he's been all over the world, up and down the Amazon and what have you, and he's never really explored some parts of Scotland, particularly the Murray Coast. And it's a fantastic area, the Murray Coast, in the sea there. You've got dolphins, resident population of dolphins and all sorts. So he was kind of putting his hand up and saying, I should probably do this a bit more.
I wonder if there's a family anywhere where the siblings have racked up as many air miles between the two as that pair. So
just incredible, yeah.
Certainly not from Scotland because we didn't have any brothers traveling the world playing football or anything like that, did we?
No, but it is. I mean, God, it's like because Stuart's one of the most well-traveled. I mean, he doesn't. I mean, I most of my stuff is in Europe, a little bit in Canada and places like that. But when I remember when the lockdown came in, a lot of us were in Germany that week because there's a big festival in Nuremberg, and that was when it started to be apparent that we might all have to get home. But I think he was in like some place like New Zealand or Australia when it happened. And there's a couple of guys that work for different distilleries. He's one of them, and they do the real kind of long haul stuff. They're away out because, of course, there's whiskey festivals all over the world now. So
yeah,
they can be anywhere. So
yeah, I dare say they've fairly got a big shout on that accolade. I was trying to wrap my brain there. Thinking maybe the Murray brothers, but they're too young to have a patch on them just yet.
Yeah. Imagine Christmas Day and everybody's just sitting in the house with jet lag. From, God knows where. So everybody's just conking out every 5 minutes.
So Paul, you have a bit of a musical background as well, don't you?
I'm not a musician. Well, I'm a terrible musician.
Right, a background in music then. What's a musical background?
One of the brands that I worked with back in the Celsius days was Jägermeister, and they advertised. They didn't pay for adverts, but they promoted themselves through sponsorship of bands, which for me was like being a pig in muck basically, because I used to spend all my money on concert tickets anyway. So all of a sudden to get into gigs for free, to hang around, to get to see things like the Kerrang Awards and stuff, they're almost as badly behaved as whiskey festivals, but a lot of fun. I've got tinnitus as a result now, but you'll see on the wall behind me if I do that. Those are all like little backstage passes from concerts you worked at. So they sort of stick them. You're not famous enough to get the little plastic one that lets you in every night, but you get the little sticky one that you can then put in a photo frame when you're finished. So. But it's good. You saw a lot of great bands. Got a lot of things I weren't allowed to take photographs of. So,
right.
I'm shocked at how expensive concerts are now that I have to pay to get in again. So,
yeah, but it's good that concerts back. That's the plus. So, would you have seen yourself in the music industry if it wasn't for wine and whiskey?
It was great fun to work there. I'm still friends with a lot of folk that still work in that, because I've got friends that are working on road crews, or they're maybe technicians or sound guys and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Those guys have probably got a more nomadic life than the traveling whiskey folk, because they live. It must have been hellish for them this last couple of years, but those guys normally they live. Those big tour buses you see outside venues. They look dead glamorous the first day you're on them, but after 8 weeks of driving around Europe, they're a bit. Yes, you've got to.
Imagine.
There's certain rules that they don't have. Like you're only supposed to use the loo on the bus for a certain function. You're not supposed to do.
Yeah,
Not for everything.
Yeah.
Because those things start to smell after about 8 weeks. But it's nice to see. It's funny when, these guys for like maybe 2 hours a day, they're like, well, they are the rock star. They're 2 hours a day. But for the rest of the time, they're sitting in buses or the same Premier Inn hotels as the rest of us. So
yeah.
I imagine it's probably different if you're like Madonna or something. But for most of the people we were working with, it was very much a kind of day-to-day existence for them. So. But I like that. It's a lot of fun to see. So
it's sort out all the Smarties, so they've only got sort of red ones, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Best rider, and it's online. Is look up Iggy Pop. Apparently has the best riders. The demands list for the dressing rooms.
Yeah.
Iggy Pop and the Foo Fighters have a cracker as well. It's like a 4-page. I think the Foo Fighters one's got a thing about like you're not allowed to feed the road crew meaty soup. Because it makes it's in the contract they've got to feed the road crew, but no meaty soup, it makes the bus smell.
Yes.
And it's like these things are on. There's like somebody's got really creative about that. But they've thought it through. So
right, it'd be great to have those.
Juliet's joined us. Hi, Juliet. How are you doing? Yeah, Juliet Buffy's just joined.
Can you imagine if you were away to the Hague or something for a whiskey festival and you put in a list? I must have a cushion on my seat, and I must have water chilled to X degrees.
I've seen
where to go.
There's some brilliant stories from sort of venues around the world about these riders, and you get a real idea that the folk you think are going to be real prima donnas are actually just sound, and the ones you think, I told. There's a venue in Glasgow that had a secret gig by Prince years and years and years ago. Tiny little venue, secret gig, Prince. And, apparently somebody, they were getting upset because somebody kept referring to him when they saw him in the corridor as Wee Man. Because it's Glasgow. Yeah. Or folk. I saw somebody once showed me a picture where the request had been that they had to have unsweetened orange juice in the dressing room, and there was a carton of orange juice, and the word "sweetened" had just been scored out with a pen. Just marker pen through it. It's like that'll do, So I don't. I've never been big enough to try putting a rider in for any of my importers. They probably just not let me off the train. So.
Yeah, we could do that whiskey. Just put a line through the chill filtration. There you go.
That'll do you. Yeah.
I often wonder. You see it in whiskey as well. You guys are speaking to Charlie next week, and these folk that you've seen in. I remember watching the Angel Share movie with my sister.
Yeah.
The bit when Charlie and I said that, I said no, he's really like that. That's. I think he got the role, but he was supposed to be advising on the movie, and then I think when the movie people saw him, they're like, "Oh no, we've got to put him in the film."
Yeah, I think he was just told to be himself, wasn't he? Ken Loach just
a lot of folk are like that. I've seen tastings from you get some of these really famous kind of whiskey blenders and stuff, and they're actually all fun. They're just the same as everybody else. They want to try new whiskies. They want to talk to distilleries. And it's great. Nobody's got the red carpet at the Ivory Tower out, so it's lovely. So
yeah, that's kind of what certainly over the last 18 months we've realised is most of these guys we've approached. I don't think we've had anyone say no yet. There's a setup for a fall now, but
if thinking it, we're probably not going to be very diva-ish, so it's lovely. So.
But yeah, I mean we've had to change dates or whatever and reschedule and stuff like that, but everyone has been more than accommodated to say quite happily come on for an hour, and I don't think you would get that in many other industries where everyone's so laid back and humble and just give up their time for an hour to sit and chat.
If you go to, I mean, I used to see this a lot when I was over in Isle at Bricklady, and you know, because at that time the McEwens lived next door, so you quite often saw, you know, and there's folk there that, you know, the Japanese, if they were touring and they saw this, they thought it was amazing that they would see the guy that's faces on the label of the whiskey bottle. I'm like, well, actually, he's probably in that shop about 5 times a day, mate. You know, he lives there, so it's, you know, we don't have to put screens up when he goes for a pint of milk. He'll come in and say hello. And you know, I'm guessing it's probably the same with lots of other folk. They're not, you know, it's not like footballers or something where you have to, you know, you're scared to meet them.
Yeah.
And because of who they are, they usually have really good whiskey in their briefcases. So.
Yes, absolutely.
We had Russell's favourite delivery boy came to the shop. It was for the Glenfarclas tasting packs.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I love this story because it was a look on Russell's face when I came in and told him who it was. So this was back in the day when the shop was not closed, but we weren't allowing people in, so we just had the kind of counter across the door. People would come and collect their whiskies. They'd either paid online or we would sell them over the counter. And we had a Glenfarclas tasting coming up, so Russell's working away, and I think it was quite a quiet day, didn't he? You only had about 5 customers in that kind of 4-hour period.
We're all in at the same time, and we had the DPD packages to deal with at the same time. We've stopped all that now. So there was somebody wanting their DPD package checked in to be dropped off, to be picked up with the courier driver. There was like a customer who I was dealing with trying to give us some advice over a bottle of gin, and then this guy came and just said, "Oh, I've got your tasting sets here," and I'm like, "Fine, whatever, just stick them down the corner."
I've just seen Juliet's comment about meat and soup. Oh no! Sorry. Carry on, Russell.
So yeah, no, I just said, just that's fine. Just stick him down the corner. I'm putting this package away, and when I turn back around, the guy's away, and I eventually sell a bottle of gin to this couple, and then of course I carry on working, and Tony came back and she says, George has been in with the Glenfarclas," and I'm like, I don't know, it's just a guy dropped him off. She goes, "No, that's the actual owner of the distillery." I'm like, "What?" I literally dismissed him. I'm like, "Oh, just stick him in the corner," because I was a bit flustered with these 3 people in the shop at the door at the same time, and trying to kind of get them what they wanted and get them away again, because he didn't want people being too close to each other. And yeah, so yeah, I've never had a chance to speak to him yet to kind of apologise.
We did this Southport festival a couple of months back, and what they did is they put a different person from a different distillery in a different local pub. So it wasn't in one big room. So you would get to Southport, but to join the festival, you had to pay a tenner, and you got a map with a starter dram, and then you had to walk around town going. And you know, I was in one place, Paul John were in the next, Loch Lomond were in another place, but the person giving out the maps and the starter dram was George Grant. So you do on the pub, and he's standing there just dishing out the, you know. So your first dram is like, how do we follow this, man? You know, they're going to come all the way down, you know. But so I thought it was a really nice way to do an event, because it kind of brought local businesses into it.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Sounds great. We had a music festival similar to that in Inverurie. 2000 before I had the shop anyway, 2013-14, and it was like that where every pub had different events on and stuff. It was good. Unfortunately, it didn't really take off.
They've done something similar to that in Glasgow, I think, not recently, but they did it a couple of years ago, where and I think there's a few events like that in America. There's one in Texas called South by Southwest, where a lot of small bands go, and some of them get big record deals and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but it's all centered around, there's not one big venue. It's just like 30 or 40 music bars have all got, and you might see somebody, you know, you might see a genuine kind of megastar playing in a wee pub in the corner somewhere. Just everybody just turns up and gives it a go. So
a lot of Phil Dixon's comment just coming up there. The whiskey tasting with George relatively recently. He drank champagne all night. There we go. Living a highlight, George.
They have some amazing whiskies, but I did a tasting in Austria, not with George, with a chap that works for Glenfarclas called Ian McWilliam. And we were in Austria, And I turn up and I've got my little box of Spey, and we're not that old a distillery, and we took over 6 years ago. So I've got a fairly, what I thought was a decent range, 6 whiskies. And Ian takes his box out with the samples, and there's like family casks that are going back to kind of 1971, 1963. Like, right, okay, can I go on first? Because I can't. I don't want to follow that. I really don't. Because everybody's just going to be sitting. I'm just going to be the picture of disappointment if I have to follow like these 1963 single casks. And some of the whiskies they had that night were outrageously good, man. Just super, super, super. So.
Yeah. He's wondering if George was drinking his champagne all night through a straw.
I don't know. I've never been much of a champagne person. Obviously you can see I look like a champagne person, but no.
I always find with the champagne and prosecco, the cheaper the better it tastes. I don't like this expensive stuff. I'll save my pennies for the whiskey.
Absolutely.
We had when I was at Cellatrins, we had the agency for that Ace of Spades champagne, the one that's in the gold bottle. That's now owned by Jay-Z and Beyonce or something.
Okay, yeah. And
it's like the one that, but most of the people I ever saw buy it, they just spray it about. They don't actually drink the damn stuff. I think in places like Harvey Nicks, it's a couple of $100 a bottle or something.
Yeah.
If I was spending that much on something, I'd drink the bloody, I wouldn't even share it, man. I'd be drinking every last drop of it myself.
Say Lewis Hamilton kind of spraying it all over the place or something like that.
Yeah, waste of good wine, man. Jesus.
We had a joke about with Mark Rainey he was on a couple of weeks ago. And we were speaking about whiskey for special occasions and kind of celebrate. And I said, "That's a great idea. We'll get some sparkling whiskey so we can shake it up and spray it."
You have to do that thing like they do in those nightclubs where they sellotape a sparkler to the neck of the bottle when they bring it to your table or something. Just so that everybody in the whole club knows you've just spent four times the cost price on something you've just paid £200 for a bottle of Grey Goose or something. So
guys,
the bar upstairs, mate.
Sorry?
You get sparklers for the bar?
It's off the fire alarm. It's too small a room for that.
Set the place on fire.
Yeah. Guys, if you got any questions while we're on, feel free to ask. Give any shouts.
Just seen Alex was talking about the Angel Share movie. That's a movie license thing. I think I've seen so many movies where that happens.
Yeah.
The outside is not, the first one I noticed was Trainspotting when they did that. Because they filmed Trainspotting. Most of where they filmed Trainspotting is actually around here where I live. There's an old office building. It's now a call centre, but in the 90s it was an empty derelict building, and that's where they did all the film sets. But everybody think, it's set in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
But if you watch the movie, they're walking past pubs I know in Glasgow. You're like, aye. So you can't watch that movie with anybody from Scotland. The Americans love it, but factually it's so incorrect. It's probably the same with all the whiskey films as well. So
Trainspotting, there's so many quotable lines. Just can you see the beast?
It's those posters. That poster turned up in every student flat in Scotland for about 5 years. Looking at, Philip, any new additions to the range? There should be this year, Philip. We have got, but like a lot of distilleries, there are delays at bottling halls and things. So a lot of things that were due to come out haven't quite arrived yet. We've got new batch of the cask strengths, including a cask strength 10 on the way. And we have we got hold of some ex-Solera casks in Jerez from a couple of different really cool wineries. So we're going to be doing some single casks with that. Those have been in the warehouse finishing for about 2 years. So we're going to do some probably single casks. We haven't decided exactly what we're doing yet, but we're going to have probably single casks that have been finished different ages as well. So not just no age statement. We've used some of our older liquid on these as well. So you'll see, hopefully, either late this year or early next year, some of these starting to appear.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so it's getting good. I mean, I love seeing what the indie bottlers do because they have new stuff every 3 months. But it takes us a little bit longer to do it. It's good fun when they come out though. So,
do you have any kind of say in the production side of it, or the release side of it? How influential are you on in that side?
Not a lot in the production. We've got a distillery manager that knows exactly what he's up to, and I wouldn't dream of trying to change that. On the release side, I can put a few bits of suggestions. I mean, the cask strength range was an idea that I think probably a lot of it happens by accident, basically. I mean, the cask strength stuff was, I'm not going to say it's an idea I had, it's probably an idea I stole from another distillery when we were looking at new things to bring out, and I kept seeing lots of good reviews for cask strength stuff coming from Aaron and all these guys. I'm like, well, maybe we should try that. And when you've got a small distillery, there's only 6 of us working in the office. It's like, okay, well, can we? That's why the first batch of cask strength was only 1,500 bottles, because if it didn't get well received, it's not a big mistake. It's not like we did 50,000 of them or something, and then we've got to really struggle to sell them. And that was the same with the peated. We had peated casks and we'd never released them. And about 5, 6 years ago, the decision to do Fumari as a no age statement batch was because we tried the different stuff that we had from each year, and there was a huge difference between the peated stock that we had from each year. So thinking back to listening to the conversations I used to overhear at Bruichladdich, they used the phrase multi-vintage, and I think, well, we should do that as well. And that way we can get 18,000 bottles that might match the next 18,000 bottles a bit more closely than if we did single year vintages.
Yeah.
Because there would be too much of a difference in flavour profile every year that we would have to be really careful. So
with rebrand or
I mean, along that kind of lines, and what was the decision behind having, the names, the Fumari, the Teeny, the Certina?
Those came mainly from the gaffer. The chap that owns the distillery, he's from the northeast of England. He lives in Aviemore. He used to live in Taiwan. He picked up these, I don't know, maybe because he's from Durham, he couldn't maybe felt about using Gaelic. So, but he's from the northeast. He's from the kind of Durham area, and that was there's a lot of areas around there that have got connections to Lord Byron, and we do some whiskies for the Byron Society. We've always done a little sort of whiskey every now and again for them. So I think if you look on the back of your label, there'll be a little logo about Lord Byron. So a lot of these have kind of stemmed from the Latin poetry type of thing going back.
Okay.
And that's about it. I mean, some of these words are Latin. I don't think Tenny is Latin because it's got an acute on it, and I don't think that exists in the Latin language, but it's meant to reference. We couldn't use the word tawny on that label, for instance, because it's too big. We have to make sure people know it's still a whiskey and not a port.
Yeah.
So it's a word that sounds similar but isn't the same. So
good. That's interesting. And you mentioned the Taiwan link there, which is the reason you have those really big, tall bottles.
Good for playing baseball with.
That's a presentation kind of thing, isn't it? If you want to present a bottle, the taller the bottle, the kind of more regarded the gift. Is that the kind of culture?
I think so. I mean, I've still not been to Taiwan, but I've been to China for stuff before. I mean, I've done some work out there, not with Spey actually, but I've been there at whiskey events, and it's maybe the same in Taiwan, but in China certainly, a lot of people drink. They don't drink at home. They drink in bars. They go out to drink. They go out to eat. They go out to drink. Mm-hmm. And there's a much more kind of ceremonial or occasional aspect to the drinking. So if you ever look at, go online and look at Baijiu bottles and see, which is, Baijiu is like the big spirit in China. They make more of that. There's more Baijiu made than any other spirit in the world combined, I think. And it's pretty much only drunk in China. But if you look at the bottles are like such ornate porcelain flasks. It's all about the ceremony. And I think that a lot of that crosses over into the whiskies that get sold out there. And that's where John started his business. So a lot of that probably comes from those days where, he started his business in Taiwan. A lot of the people we work with out there, we've still got an office out there. So he was an indie bottler before he bought the distillery. You know, we were one of the distilleries he was sourcing liquid from. And he already had these bottles designed. He had the Spey brand name before Spey became a product of Speyside Distillery. So it's probably a bit of that, actually.
Yeah.
I know as a shop owner, Mike, it's probably a bugger to put them on the shelf.
Oh, no, not at all.
They fit on your shelf. There's a lot of shops that don't fit on the shelf. I usually have to duck. If it's a shop I've never been in before, I'm worried I have to check what size their shelves are before I show them the bottle. So,
To be fair, we'd rather the tall, thin ones than some of these really dumpy ones because they're really annoying, especially the ones that have got a wide shoulder and then come in like that because there's a whole load of wasted space. It's like
I got a tour around in Turret last week, earlier this week. Because it's now been transformed. They've got the new. What an amazing place now that the league have sort of refurbed that. Some of the stuff in there is jaw-dropping. It really is. But the chap was saying, because the new Glenturret bottles, they're taller at the top.
Unpopular, yeah.
And he says, no, they look amazing. But apparently when they're sort of going down the line at the bottling hall, because they're a bit top, when they're empty, they wobble around a bit. So you're like, ours do that as well. Yeah. Ours do that as well.
Because it's going down the line. Coming from the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you see the empties going down the line, you wonder how they actually stay upright. So because ours are so tall that when there's no liquid in the bottle, it's very kind of sugary.
There's a Scottish word for you. A couple of questions coming in. So David's saying, is this the little shop in Aviemore I did a tasting last year? So yes, David.
Quite possibly. Yeah, we've got a wee shop there. They opened a new retail park, and we can't have a shop at the distillery, so we got the chance to open a wee store there, and we thought we could use that for tastings. The owner's wife's an artist, so it's partly a gallery, partly a tasting room, a place where
it's a lovely wee place. It's really nice.
Most of the folk that visit that part of Speyside stay in Aviemore anyway, and the only place you could buy whiskey before was Tesco, so it seemed a great opportunity to have a wee store. And a couple of local folk have got jobs out of it. So, I mean, we sponsor a few events there. It's great. I wish we could have, that years ago. So
we need more shopping centres with little wee places like that, because shopping centres are usually a nightmare place to go to. So at least you've got a nice one everywhere. And Fiona's wondering if you've got any sales jobs. She's looking for a change.
Keep watching. I don't know. I just have no idea at the moment. It's that strange kind of time where there's so many things. We'll see what happens as the industry starts to pick itself up again after COVID. I've got a few friends that are looking now. So, maybe the companies have had to downsize a wee bit. So who knows?
There must be tanker lorry jobs they going, or
even the guys that deliver.
David's last comment there. A little bit of a bottle as well.
Yeah, you're saying about the drivers, Russell, man. Even the supermarket vans that deliver their home shopping here have got adverts on the back for drivers at the moment.
I find it quite incredible. I mean, having said that, you see the wages they're off. The wages aren't great for the job that you're doing, and you're in charge of a big heavy vehicle. So maybe that's a problem.
Yeah,
I think the attitude has always been
unskilled away from home for days at a time sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's and Juliet's asking Paul as well, how's the bike? I know we spoke about the cycling at the start. I didn't know you've only recently taken off the stabilizers.
Oh, she's because when I started cycling again last year, I was going for about a month and I fell off and broke my arm. So one of Glasgow's finest potholes. And that's probably the first time I'd fallen off a bike in about 20 years. And I suddenly realised it takes a lot longer to get rid of the pain when you're this age than you are when you're a teenager. So
you've got a lot higher.
Especially if you fracture something. Do you wear clip-ins?
Yes.
Yeah. And so when you wear clip-ins, Mike's not a cyclist, so when you wear clip-ins, falling off is a rite of passage. It has to actually happen at some point, because you need to learn when to clip in, when to clip out, and stuff like that.
So when you first start using those, I've had those on my bike for like 20 odd years, but I think everybody, the first time they use those types of pedals will go through that moment when they stop at traffic lights and they can't get their foot off the thing.
Yeah.
and they just do that only fools and horses thing where you just
yeah,
I've done that. Done
I've
that
done that
before.
as well. I did that. I was with my mate Mark, who was a serious cyclist. He was with one of the big clubs in Aberdeen, and we left his flat in Holborn and got down to Holborn Junction beside the bar, and that happened to me. Over I went. So I'm lying at the junction, but this is trying to get my feet out so I can actually get away from the bike to stand up to pick it up. When an old lady was crossing the road and she stopped beside me and asked if I was okay. Like, how much more embarrassing can this get?
The other thing is when you're trying to get up a hill and you've not been up a hill for 20 years and like little old ladies on shopping bikes pass you.
Yeah.
Did you see the footage this week from the Tour of Britain? It was in Scotland.
Yeah, the wee boy.
Like professional cyclists going up the hill.
Yeah,
and he was about 10 years old, went ripping past them on the other side of the road.
It was fantastic.
And then one of the teams actually found him afterwards, and he joined them for the next day at the start line. They put him in a kit and everything. It's like, yeah,
Jumbo,
you can
Jumbo
be
Visma, yeah, Van Aert, yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Well, that was amazing.
Yeah, I think he got invited to the VIP party after that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's.
So Russell, pre or post leg shaving for your cycling antics?
No. I've never got to this shaving my legs, but
I did for several years.
By the time I get to there, so yeah, I think I'm doing well by going up the hill, and then some guy on a delivery bike with somebody's 3-course meal on their back will overtake me and scoot off into the distance.
Yeah, they've got electric bikes now, though. Delivery.
I don't know, whatever they're on, they're faster than me. And they've got pizza, so
they've got pizza.
That's your carrot. You should be chasing them.
Oh man, I don't know if I'll ever manage to catch them. So.
Right. Well, guys, we do try and stick to an hour. We don't want to go on too long because people start getting bored of us. But I mean, we really could. We've only scratched the surface. It'd be great to have you back, hopefully, in person at the shop doing a tasting with the Spey.
Well, that should be nice. I noticed you had Mickey Plummer in there a couple of weeks ago. So it's about time you invited the rest of the world in as well, So
Absolutely.
That was actually that was in the launch of our we took in the UK batch of their what's Darlin Legret.
He was at the Spirit of Perthshire dinner a couple of weeks ago with me, and he pronounced the name of some of the whiskies, and I thought he was choking. He's got the accent absolutely down pat. It's fantastic, but I couldn't even pronounce half the stuff he was saying. So,
yeah, he's worked for them just over a year. He's never been to Sweden yet. It's all Zoom calls and whatever. So
I know he's coming up to Aberdeen as well this weekend, I think. So, in fact, for those somebody's mentioned, I think Alistair said he was coming. Anybody that's coming along to the festival in Aberdeen on Saturday, stop by and say hello. There's quite a few of us are going to be there, I think. So, be good to see folk in person again, or folk I've never met before we all went into lockdown. It'd be nice to meet them face to face. So,
yeah. Well, I'm taking a group out to Glendronach on Saturday. I'm back on eventually getting out on a tour, which was one of my main jobs that I've never done since I started. So yes, I'm taking a wee group out to Glendronach for that.
2 years in a way.
Nice. I've never been to Glendronach. I've driven past it before, but I've never actually been in yet.
Well, it's just 7 miles from my house. Well, around about 7 miles from my house now. I've moved further north, so I drive past it every day.
If anything, I actually want to go and now visit. I've sat in on so many distillery tastings over the last year and a half that I really think I need to go and visit the distilleries. So many that you drive past, especially in the north of Scotland, you drive past loads of them I've never been in, and it's like, right, I need to stop in now. So,
well, when you do Glendronach or Glenglassaugh, give me a shout because I'm literally on the doorstep of both of those. So,
will do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I need. It was great to see loads of ideas I can steal for our place. So,
yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. It's all about stealing ideas.
Totally.
The tasting room at Glendronach is something else. It's absolutely beautiful since I've done it up. It's well worth having a pop in.
Yeah, I want to check out a lot of these kind of reborn distilleries. Brora, or when they get Port Ellen up and running again. Rosebank's not. Rosebank's probably the closest one of those to me, like an old distillery that's getting rebuilt. They're breathing new life in it. I can't wait to see what those things have done.
Yeah.
So it's good times. It's exciting. So
absolutely for sure. But yeah,
definitely.
Get a tasting sorted in the shop as well.
Yeah,
sure.
that tasting room up the stairs was looking good when I saw it the last time.
Mm-hmm.
Although it was your mail order hub at the same time, so it was.
It's a lot nicer now. The mail order hub's moved, so it's a lot nicer.
The mail order team have been kicked out there now. They're packing at the top of the stairs now. So
I remember there being good banana loaf in there or something. So
that's right. I think was that your mum? No, was that Tony or your mum that made that?
I think it was Tony. I think it was.
Yeah.
Because I could eat it as well. It was gluten free for me. So
we do like a bit of cake.
No, I'm just looking at these comments. Thank you. It's great to hear all these sea folk again. So sooner we can get some tasting together.
I think I'm not sure about you guys, but I think the internet is starting to play up a wee bit on my end.
Yeah, you're certainly a wee bit fuzzy there, Mike.
That might be the whiskey.
It could well be the whiskey. It's that Swedish stuff you're drinking. You should be drinking Scotch, man.
Cheers, Philip. Cheers, Alistair. Cheers, Fiona. Thanks, Juliet.
It could be.
Cheers, David. Oh, my word.
Yeah. No, those have been good. But as Mike says, we do kind of end up kind of, well, we've been saying to people we've been blethering with so far that we need to organise a part 2, but hopefully the part 2 can actually be in person.
Yes, definitely.
And that would be much better, for sure.
That would be a lot of fun. Just to see,
definitely
to get back in with bottles and glasses in front of people.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Excellent stuff.
Am I back in the room, guys? Am I?
Yes, you're there. Yeah, you're there. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think I got lost in a wee bit there. But, I kind of got the sound through about 5 seconds after it looked like you were speaking. So.
Like watching a dodgy film on Netflix where that really annoys me. I hate that.
Pretty
much, yeah. Cheers, Juliet. Thank you. I hope
to
catch up with you at one of these festivals out there somewhere.
Thanks,
soon.
everyone. Thanks, Phil, Alistair, Dave.
Who do you think will be next to you on Saturday? Will it be Ben? Probably.
It might be Ben.
Definitely get on that. I can't wait.
Be Ben maybe. And I've got Glenn Murray on the other side, which I think is Ian Allen. So it'll be good to see these guys again. So
we never even got to chat about the Sherry group today, which we ordinarily chat with Ian Forteeth was on a while ago talking about the Sherry club. So.
Oh, I've seen him in a sherry bodega.
We've certainly heard of that. Mike and I are very jealous. We want to be part of the Sherry Club.
Oh, we need to get another trip. We need another trip out there. I have a funny feeling when we do arrange it, there might be a few more people than were there the last time on the same trip.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Fantastic. Good show. Are you there, Mike?
Okay, guys, I'm just going to stop the broadcast. Yeah,
cool.
I'm going to stop the broadcast now. Thanks, guys. Sorry.
Before you do, because you're a wee bit sketchy, I'll mention next week, Mike. Yeah. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do it anyway. So next week, guys, Charlie McLean of the historical fame in the whisky industry will be with us. I have absolutely no idea what we'll be blethering about, but I dare say it'll be something fantastic. So tune in next week again.
He's got some great stories.
See where we'll end up with Charles. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. I'm so looking forward to it. It's going to be so. I have no idea.
I don't think we'll have to talk much.
No, I don't think so. Why say it in 10 words when you can say it in 10,000? I think that's brilliant. I love it. Absolutely love it. Can't wait.
Oh, brilliant. You'll see me next week. I'll check in and watch it. So.
Yeah, brilliant.
Right, I think
it is. Okay, Mike.
Right.
Yeah, come off live. See you next week, guys.
You guys there? I'm back. Off live, yeah. Cheers. Yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Still on live here, Mike?
Yeah, I'm still showing it as
Yeah.
we're still in the show. So
Not sure what's happened to your StreamYard account. It's been stolen. There we go.